What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this, there's a version of you out there who never made it past December 19, 2025, and another version who did but wishes they hadn't? Because on that day, something arrived from the space between stars, something that didn't just pass by Earth. It reached inside you and pulled. Let me take you back to where it started. July 1, 2025. You're scrolling through your feed, probably watching videos just like this one when the notification drops. NASA's made an announcement. They've spotted something hurtling through our solar system, an interstellar comet they're calling 3I Atlas, Manhattan-sized, fast, beautiful even in the grainy telescope footage that's already going viral. The headlines call it a cosmic visitor, a once-in-a-lifetime event. Its closest approach to Earth, December 19. Mark your calendars, they say, you'll want to see this. And you do mark it, you save the date. You feel that little flutter of excitement because space stuff is cool, right? Something from beyond our solar system just dropping by, harmless, scientific. Except that same day something changes, something small, so small you almost don't notice. You're making coffee that morning when it happens. The mug in your hand, you could swear just for a fraction of a second that you're holding it and watching yourself hold it at the same time. Like your perspective split just a hair, then snap back. You blink, shake your head. Maybe you didn't sleep well, maybe you're stressed. The feeling passes and you go on with your day. But it leaves this residue, this uncomfortable feeling in your chest like you've forgotten something important but can't remember what. Over the next few days, it gets worse. You start experiencing déjà vu, but not the normal kind. Not the fleeting I've been here before sensation that dissolves in seconds. This lingers. You'll be having a conversation and suddenly you're convinced you've had this exact exchange before, same words, same inflections, same flickering overhead light, but when you try to remember when, you can't. It's like the memory exists in a place you can't quite reach, and it happens again and again. Each time lasting a little longer, feeling a little more real. Then there are the shadows. You notice it first when you're walking home one evening. The sun's low, casting long shadows across the sidewalk, and yours doesn't quite match your movement. It's subtle. A half-second delay maybe, or a slight difference in the angle. You stop walking. Your shadow stops. You wave your hand. The shadow waves back, but you could absolutely swear that it moved just before you did, like it knew what you were going to do. You tell yourself it's nothing. Tricks of light. Stress. Maybe you should get more sleep, drink less caffeine, spend less time online. But you can't stop going online because that's when things get really strange. The Nostradamus predictions start circulating around July 10. You know how the internet is. Everyone's got their conspiracy theories, their doomsday prophecies. But this one spreads like wildfire. Someone's dug up a quatrain supposedly written by the 16th century mystic, something about a celestial splitter and a fork in the heavens. The translations are vague, as always, open to interpretation. But the comment sections are filled with people swearing it's about 3I Atlas. The dates line up, they say. The comet's path creates a fork shape against the stars. This is it, the prediction. You laugh it off. Of course you do, you're not superstitious. But then you read the comments more carefully and you see something that makes your blood run cold. Other people are experiencing the glitches. Hundreds of them, thousands, all starting around July 1. The same day NASA made the announcement. Someone describes waking up with memories of conversations they never had. Another person swears their reflection blinked at them independently. A woman in Norway posts about finding 2 identical coffee stains on her kitchen table, but she only spilled once. The posts keep coming. Different countries, different time zones, all reporting the same impossible things, and they're all tying it back to 3I Atlas, to the celestial splitter, to December 19. You want to dismiss it. Mass hysteria, you think, confirmation bias, people looking for patterns that aren't there. But then you're brushing your teeth one night and you watch your reflection in the mirror. You lean forward, your reflection leans forward, but it's wrong, just by a fraction of a second. You're seeing yourself from a moment ago or a moment ahead, like reality's frame rate is dropping, buffering, trying to load 2 versions of the present at once. Your hands start shaking. The toothbrush falls into the sink and you grip the counter, staring at yourself, at yourselves, because now there's definitely a lag, a visible split between you and the person in the mirror. Then it snaps back together and you're alone again. Just you, just one you. But you felt it. That sensation of being doubled, of existing in 2 places, 2 moments, 2 possibilities simultaneously. And you know with absolute certainty that something is fundamentally wrong. The days crawl toward December. You try to go about your normal life, but the glitches multiply. Objects feel like they're in two places at once when you touch them. You reach for your phone and your hand passes through it just for an instant before solidifying and grasping it properly. Time itself feels elastic, stretching and compressing unpredictably. You'll look at a clock and swear 5 minutes have passed, but it's been an hour, or 3 seconds. The internet's ablaze now. Scientists are trying to explain it away. Mass delusion, stress responses to global anxiety. Some psychologist on TV talks about collective psychogenic illness, and maybe that would comfort you if you hadn't watched your own hand phase through solid matter. It's December 18 when the worst one happens. You're getting ready to leave your apartment, keys in hand. You need to get out, need to be around other people, need to confirm that reality is still real. You reach for your keys on the table where you always leave them. Your hand goes through them. Not quickly this time, not a glitch you can pretend didn't happen. Your fingers pass through solid metal like it's smoke, and you watch, frozen, horrified, as your hand becomes translucent, ghostly, not entirely there. For 3 full seconds you exist and don't exist in the same space. You can feel both states, the solidity of being and the terrifying weightlessness of not. Then your hand solidifies and you're holding the keys and they're real and heavy and cold in your palm. But you're shaking so hard you drop them. They clatter to the floor, real sound, real impact, and you just stare. Because tomorrow is December 19. Tomorrow the comet makes its closest approach. And you realize with creeping, suffocating dread that this isn't just paranoia. This isn't mass hysteria or sleep deprivation. Something is actually happening. Reality is fracturing, and you're fracturing with it. After what happened with the keys, after you watched your own hand dissolve into nothing and reform, you can't just go back to normal life. You can't unhear the sound of your keys hitting the floor. You can't unfeel that weightlessness, that horrible sensation of being not quite real. So you do what anyone would do in 2025 when reality starts breaking. You go online. And that's when you fall down the rabbit hole. It starts innocently enough. You type 3i Atlas glitches into Reddit, half expecting to find nothing, maybe some joke threads or sci-fi speculation. Instead, you find thousands of posts. Thousands. There's an entire subreddit now, r Atlas Phenomenon, created just 4 days after NASA's announcement. It has over 2 million members. 2 million people sharing stories that sound exactly like yours. I swear I lived this day twice, someone posts. Not like deja vu, I mean I lived it. I woke up, went to work, came home, went to sleep. Then I woke up again and it was the same day. Same conversations, same coffee stain on my shirt, but I remembered the first time. You feel something crack open in your chest. Relief, maybe? Validation. You're not crazy, you're not alone. But then the feeling curdles into something darker, because if you're not crazy, if this is really happening to millions of people, then what the hell is happening? You start reading obsessively. The posts all follow similar patterns. People experiencing timeline echoes, that's what they're calling them. Fleeting visions of lives they didn't live but somehow remember. A woman in Tokyo swears she has memories of marrying a man she's never met. A college student in Ohio remembers graduating with honors last spring, has the whole ceremony in his head, except he's still a sophomore and spring hasn't happened yet. These aren't fantasies or dreams. They feel real. They have weight, texture, emotional resonance. They're memories, just not from this timeline. And the more you read, the more you start noticing your own echoes. It happens first with your job. You're at work one afternoon in late July and your manager walks by without acknowledging you. Nothing weird about that, she's busy, but something nags at you. A memory surfaces. She congratulated you last month, shook your hand, took you out for drinks to celebrate your promotion to senior analyst. You can remember the exact restaurant, the way the light caught her glasses when she toasted you, the weight of the new business cards in your pocket. Except you never got promoted. You're still a junior analyst. You've never been to that restaurant with your manager. But the memory is there, solid and complete, sitting in your head alongside the truth. 2 realities occupying the same space in your mind. You excuse yourself to the bathroom and splash cold water on your face, gripping the sink just like you did that night in front of the mirror. Your reflection looks back at you, just one reflection now, perfectly synchronized, but you don't trust it anymore. The echoes multiply as summer bleeds into fall. You remember a vacation you never took, a fight with your best friend that never happened, except when you see them next, there's this tension between you, this unspoken awkwardness, and you don't know if you're imagining it or if they're experiencing their own echo, their own version where the fight did happen. Your loved ones start feeling like strangers. Not dramatically, not obviously, but in small ways. Your mom mentions a childhood story you don't remember. Your partner has a scar you swear wasn't there before. When you ask about it, they look at you strangely. I've had this for 10 years, don't you remember? No, you don't, and you're terrified of what that means. The forums become your lifeline and your obsession. You're on there every night now, comparing notes, sharing theories. The consensus is forming. 3I Atlas isn't just a comet, it's a catalyst. Something about its composition, its radiation, its trajectory through our solar system is causing reality to fork. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in subtle, creeping ways. Every day, every moment, timelines are splitting and splitting and splitting, and somehow you're conscious of it. You're straddling multiple versions of yourself, multiple versions of your life, and they're all bleeding together. The scientific community denies it, of course. They have to. Because accepting it would mean accepting that reality is fundamentally unstable, that the universe is coming apart at the seams. So they call it mass hysteria, mass psychogenic illness, a perfect storm of social media echo chambers and global anxiety producing shared delusions. One astrophysicist goes on CNN and calmly explains that 3I Atlas's radiation is entirely within normal parameters, that interstellar objects pass through our solar system regularly, that there is zero evidence of any anomalous effects. But you felt your hand phase through solid matter. You remember lives you didn't live. You can't gaslight yourself into believing it's all in your head. So you investigate. Methodically, obsessively, you dig deeper. You find the Nostradamus quatrains everyone's talking about, the celestial splitter, the fork in the heavens, all of it, and yeah, it's vague, it's open to interpretation, but the imagery is eerily specific. The comet, the split, December 19. Amateur astronomers are posting enhanced images of 3I Atlas and you study them for hours. There's something about the way it moves, the trail it leaves. It doesn't look like other comets. The tail splits, branches, creates these fork-like patterns against the stars. October comes and you're barely sleeping. The echoes are constant now. You'll be having a conversation and suddenly remember having it differently, different words, different outcome, and you have to stop and figure out which version is real, which timeline you're actually in. Sometimes you catch yourself reaching for objects that don't exist, objects from other timelines, a book you never bought, a jacket you never owned. Your apartment feels wrong, like someone's been rearranging things when you're not looking, except you're the one doing it. Different versions of you, living slightly different lives, all overlapping. You start documenting everything, taking notes, timestamps, trying to track when the echoes happen and what triggers them. There's a pattern, you're sure of it. The splits are getting more frequent as December approaches. Reality's frame rate is dropping, buffering harder and harder, trying to process too many timelines at once. It's during one of these late-night research sessions, deep in a forum thread about quantum mechanics and many worlds theory, that it happens. You're tired, eyes burning from staring at the screen for hours, and you glance at the little webcam feed in the corner of your laptop, the one that shows you sitting there, hunched over, illuminated by blue light. Except the you in the webcam isn't quite synchronized with you. You lean forward. The webcam you leans forward a second later. You tilt your head. The echo follows, delayed, and then you notice they're mouthing something. The you in the webcam, the echo you, is speaking, lips moving deliberately, trying to communicate something urgent. You can't hear it, there's no sound, but you watch, transfixed, as your parallel self forms words and you try to read their lips. It looks like a warning, it looks like. The screen glitches. Hard. Black bars streak across your monitor, the image fragmenting into geometric chaos, and when it resolves a second later, there's text overlaid on your webcam feed. Text that wasn't there before, text that shouldn't be possible. It says, "Don't let it complete." Your blood turns to ice. Your hands hover over the keyboard, shaking, and you stare at the message, at this impossible communication from another version of yourself, another timeline, another you who knows something you don't. The screen flickers again and the message is gone. The webcam feed shows only you, perfectly synchronized now, sitting frozen in horror. But you saw it. You know you saw it. And the implications are crashing over you like a wave. Because if another you is trying to warn you, trying to reach across timelines to send a message, then they know something. They know what happens on December 19. They know what the split completes into. And they're terrified enough to break through reality itself to warn you. That message haunts you. Don't let it complete. 3 words from another version of yourself, reaching through the cracks in reality to warn you, and you have no idea what it means. What completes on December 19? The comet's approach, the split itself. And how are you supposed to stop something cosmic, something that's already unraveling every thread of your existence? November arrives, and with it, everything gets worse. You wake up one morning in your bed, in your apartment, in your life, except it's not. Not quite. The wrongness hits you immediately before you even open your eyes fully. It's subtle, the kind of thing you might dismiss as grogginess or a trick of morning light, but you've learned to trust these feelings now. You've learned that when something feels off, it is. You sit up and look around. Your bedroom, same furniture, same layout, but the poster on the wall, it's different. Not a different poster, but different. The colors are slightly more faded or maybe more vibrant, you can't quite tell. The frame is black instead of silver. Or was it always black? You feel your memory trying to adjust, trying to convince you it was always this way, but you resist. You hold onto the silver frame, the one you remember, even as reality insists otherwise. Then you see the photos on your dresser. Family photos. You pick one up with trembling hands. It's you and your parents at some beach. You're smiling, sun-bleached and happy, holding up a fish you apparently caught, except you've never been to this beach. You've never been fishing with your parents. The memory doesn't exist in your head, but the photo exists in your hands, physical and undeniable. And the worst part, your parents in the photo look slightly different. Older, younger, just other. Like someone photoshopped their faces, but perfectly, imperceptibly, so you can't quite identify what changed. You go through the other photos with growing panic. Birthday parties you don't remember, friends you've never met, a dog you never owned. Each image is a window into a life that isn't yours, or maybe used to be yours, or will be yours. The timeline grammar doesn't work anymore. Past, present, and future are meaningless when reality keeps rewriting itself. You try calling your best friend. You need to tell someone, need to confirm that this is happening, that you're not losing your mind. The conversation goes exactly as badly as you feared. Dude, you need to get some sleep, they say, concern edging into irritation. You've been obsessing over this comet thing for months now. It's just a space rock. It's not changing reality. But the photos. What photos? You're seeing things that aren't there, or you're misremembering. It happens to everyone. I'm not misremembering. I know what my life was and this isn't. Listen to yourself. You sound paranoid, maybe talk to someone, like professionally. The call ends shortly after. They don't believe you. Nobody does. The handful of people you've tried to confide in either dismiss you as stressed or suggest you're having a breakdown. Even your family, when you mention the photos, your mom just laughs and tells you stories about that fishing trip, that vacation, events that never happened but that she remembers perfectly. And the gaslighting isn't intentional. She's not lying. In her timeline, in her reality, those things did happen, but not in yours. Or not in the version of yours you started with. The isolation is crushing. You're trapped inside your own experience, watching the world around you shift and change while everyone else moves through it like nothing's wrong. Maybe for them, nothing is wrong. Maybe they're the ones in the stable timeline, and you're the glitch, the error, the one reality is trying to correct. So you do the only thing you can. You document everything. You start keeping a journal, writing down every detail you can remember from your original timeline, the one you woke up in on July 1. You chart the anomalies, date them, describe them with obsessive precision. You print out astronomical data about 3I Atlas, tracking its path through the solar system, calculating and recalculating its closest approach. December 19. Always December 19. The date looms in your mind like a deadline, which, you realize with grim humor, it might literally be. You dive back into the Nostradamus research, reading and rereading those cryptic quatrains. The celestial splitter and fork in the heavens get all the attention online, but there's another line that keeps pulling at you. Splintered souls seeking wholeness. Splintered souls, that's what you are now, isn't it? Not one person but fragments scattered across timelines, each version slightly different, slightly wrong. and seeking wholeness. Is that what happens on December 19? Do all the fragments snap back together? Or do they drift so far apart that you cease to exist as a coherent being entirely? The psychological weight of it is staggering. You find yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. Your memories, your relationships, your very identity. If you're experiencing echoes from other timelines, how do you know which memories are originally yours? How do you know which version of you is the real one? What if, and this thought makes your chest tighten with existential dread, what if you're not the original? What if you're just an echo, a copy, a splinter of someone else? What if the real you exists in some other timeline, living the life you think you remember and you're just leftover, a ghost haunting a reality that isn't yours? That gnawing fear hits you at random moments. You'll be brushing your teeth, making coffee, walking down the street, and suddenly you're paralyzed by the question, am I real or am I the echo? And the worst part is you have no way to know. No way to verify. The ground beneath your feet, literal and metaphorical, has become quicksand. November drags on, each day heavier than the last. You barely leave your apartment anymore. You're not sleeping well. Your appearance in the mirror deteriorates, dark circles, unkempt hair, the hollow-eyed look of someone who's seen too much. You've started talking to yourself, or maybe to your other selves, testing if they can hear you across timelines the way one of them reached out through your webcam. Can you hear me? You whisper to the empty room. Are you there? No response. Just silence and the hum of your refrigerator and the crushing weight of your isolation. Your journal becomes your anchor. You write in it constantly, sometimes coherently, sometimes in frantic scrawls when the echoes hit hard, and you need to document what's happening before the memory shifts. You write about the comet, about the splits, about your theories on what's causing it. The act of writing grounds you, makes you feel real, proves that you exist in this moment, in this timeline. It's during one of these late-night writing sessions, 3 weeks before December 19, that you notice something that makes your blood freeze. You're jotting down notes about the comet's trajectory, trying to correlate the timeline splits with its position in the solar system. You write, December 19 approaches, and set down your pen to check some data on your laptop. When you look back at the journal, the words have changed. The ink is still wet, still fresh, but the sentence now reads, "You've already split." You grab the pen and scribble over it, rewriting the original sentence. You watch the page. The ink shimmers, swims, and reforms into the new message. Again, like the journal itself is alive, like reality is editing your own handwriting. Your hands shake as you flip back through previous entries, paranoia spiking. How many of your notes have been rewritten? How much of your documentation has been compromised by whatever force is causing this? You scan page after page, looking for inconsistencies, and that's when you find it. An entry dated November 15, 4 days ago. You remember that day, you spent it researching Nostradamus translations. But the entry in your journal isn't about Nostradamus. It's a single sentence, written in your handwriting but in a style that's somehow off, more frantic, more desperate. The split is coming for you, run. You don't remember writing this. You have no recollection of putting pen to paper and forming these words. But it's there, in your journal, in your handwriting, undeniable. Another message from another you, another warning, another piece of a puzzle you can't quite assemble. And as you sit there, staring at the words in the dim light of your apartment, you feel it. A pull. Like something is tugging at your consciousness, at your very being, trying to pull you in a direction you can't identify. It's been building for weeks, this sensation, but now it's unmistakable. Something is pulling at you. December 19 is approaching, and whatever is coming, whatever the split completes into, you can feel it reaching for you across time and space. The force is impersonal, cosmic, utterly indifferent to your terror. 3i Atlas doesn't care that you're falling apart. It's not malicious. It's just doing what it does, following its trajectory, emanating its radiation, fracturing reality as a side effect of its passage. You're just in the way, just one of billions of souls caught in the splintering. But the pull grows stronger each day, and you still don't know where it's pulling you toward, or what you'll become when you arrive. December arrives, and you're not alone in your head anymore. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But after months of watching reality fracture, after your own journal warning you to run, after feeling that pull growing stronger with each passing day, you've learned to accept impossible things. And this This is the most impossible yet. It starts with sounds, voices specifically. Your voice to be exact, but saying things you're not saying. You first notice it on December 3rd. You're making breakfast, the mundane ritual of coffee and toast that's become your anchor to sanity, when you hear yourself having a conversation. Not in your head, that would be easier to dismiss. No, this is external, spatial, like someone's playing a recording of you in the next room. You walk toward the sound, following your own voice through your apartment, and it grows louder as you approach your bedroom. You hear yourself say, "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when I know what you did." The voice is full of pain, anger, betrayal, emotions you're not feeling right now. You're confused, maybe frightened, but not heartbroken, yet your voice is. Your voice is breaking with the kind of hurt that comes from profound betrayal. Then another voice responds, a voice you don't recognize. "Please, just listen to me." The voice is cut off. Silence. You stand in your bedroom doorway, heart hammering, staring at your empty room. No one's there. No speakers, no devices playing tricks. Just you and the echo of a conversation that's happening somewhere else. Someone else. In another timeline where you're having a relationship crisis with someone you've never met. And that's just the first bleed. Let's unpack this together because it gets so much worse. Over the next few days, the bleeds multiply. You'll be sitting at your computer, researching Comet trajectories, when you suddenly hear yourself on a phone call. "No, I got the promotion," your voice says, confident and excited. The promotion from that echo memory, the one that never happened in your timeline. Or you'll be making lunch and hear yourself crying, deep-wrenching sobs that make your chest ache with phantom grief. Or laughing at a joke you didn't hear. Or arguing with someone about politics, money, whose turn it is to pick up the kids you don't have never had, might have in some other version of your life. These aren't memories. They're happening in real time. Parallel conversations bleeding through from parallel lives, all overlapping in the same space, the same moment, as the timelines compress toward December 19. The psychological weight of this is staggering. Imagine trying to maintain your sense of self when you're constantly bombarded with evidence of all the other selves you could be. All the choices you didn't make, the paths you didn't walk, the people you could have loved or hurt or become. It's like being haunted, except the ghosts are all you. And here's where it gets really disturbing. The alternate yous aren't all good. You start paying attention to the content of these bleeds, listening carefully when your other voices intrude. Some of them are benign, mundane conversations about groceries or work or plans for the weekend, but others are darker. There's a version of you that sounds cold, calculating. You hear yourself manipulating someone, lying with such casual ease that it makes your skin crawl. "Trust me," that version says, smooth and convincing. "I'm doing this for your own good." But you can hear the underlying intent, the self-interest masked as concern. That version of you is ruthless. There's another version that sounds broken, defeated. You hear yourself saying things like, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to," over and over, apologetic to the point of self-erasure. That version is a victim, or maybe has victimized themselves, trapped in cycles of guilt and self-flagellation. And then there's a version that sounds wrong, unhinged. You catch snippets of conversations that make your blood run cold. Violent thoughts expressed casually. Cruelty delivered with laughter. That version scares you because you recognize the voice, it's yours, but the person speaking is someone you don't want to be, someone you're terrified you could become under the right circumstances. This is where the horror turns inward. This is where it becomes a whodunit, except instead of solving a murder, you're trying to figure out which version of you is the real one. Which timeline is the original? Which path is authentic? Are you the good one, the neutral one, or are you secretly the monster and just don't realize it yet? Because here's the thing, you can't know. The splits have been happening since July and maybe earlier than that. Maybe reality's been forking for years and you only became aware of it when 3i Atlas drew close enough to thin the barriers between timelines. Maybe that ruthless version was you once. Maybe you made different choices, became that person, and then reality split and you forgot. Maybe the broken version is your future, where the weight of all this fracturing finally crushes you. You start questioning your own motivations, examining your actions with paranoid intensity. When you're short with someone, is that your darkness showing through? When you feel ambitious, competitive, is that the ruthless you bleeding into your personality? The boundaries are dissolving. You're not one person anymore, you're a composite, a blend of all your possible selves, and they're not all compatible. The existential dread is suffocating. What if you're causing this? Not the comet, not cosmic radiation, but you. What if your consciousness is so fractured, so unstable, that you're generating these timeline splits yourself? What if every choice you make spawns a new reality because you can't commit to a single path, a single identity? What if you're the splitter and 3i Atlas is just the catalyst that made you aware of what you've been doing all along? But no, that can't be right, because the phenomenon is global. You've been checking the forums obsessively and the reports are spiking. Everyone's experiencing bleeds now. People hearing their alternate selves, seeing overlapping versions of their lives, confronting the multiplicities of their own existence. The world is fracturing, not just you. The news won't cover it. They're still calling it mass hysteria, shared delusion, a psychological pandemic, but you know better. Millions of people can't all be delusional in exactly the same way. The Nostradamus lore is everywhere now. That phrase, splintered souls seeking wholeness, has become a mantra in the online communities. Some people think December 19 will bring convergence, that all the timelines will snap back together and will become whole again. Others think it's the opposite, that will fracture completely, each version splintering off into separate, irreconcilable realities, never to reunite. You don't know which interpretation terrifies you more. It's December 14th, 5 days before the comet's closest approach, when the bleeds become visual. You're in your bathroom brushing your teeth, again with the mundane rituals trying to hold on to normalcy when you see movement in the mirror. Not your movement, someone else's. You freeze, toothbrush halfway to your mouth, and watch as a figure materializes behind your reflection. It's you. Another you. Dressed differently, hairstyled differently, expression harder, more weary. They're standing where you're standing, occupying the same space but from a different angle, a different timeline. The alternate you makes eye contact with you through the mirror. Their lips move. At first you can't hear them. The sound is muffled, distant, like they're underwater. But then their voice breaks through, overlapping with the present, and you hear them whisper. We're converging on the 19th. Your toothbrush clatters into the sink. You spin around, but there's no one behind you, just your empty bathroom. But when you look back at the mirror, they're still there, staring at you with urgent intensity. All of us, they continue, their voice clearer now. Every version, every timeline, we're all being pulled to the same point, the same moment. What happens then? You ask aloud, your voice shaking. What happens when we collide? The alternate you's expression shifts. Fear, resignation, something else you can't identify. They lean closer to the mirror, and you swear their hand presses against the glass from the other side, creating a small fog of condensation. That's what I've been trying to figure out, they say, because I'm you from 3 days ahead, December 17th, and I need you to understand something. The image flickers, fragments, their voice distorts into static. Not all of us will survive the connection breaks. The mirror shows only you again, pale and terrified, alone in your bathroom with the echo of a warning you didn't fully hear. Not all of us will survive. But survive what? The convergence itself, the collision of timelines, or will some versions of you be erased, consumed, absorbed by the others? Is December 19th a reunification or an annihilation? And the most terrifying question of all, which version of you will be the one that remains? The blackouts start on December 15th. One moment you're standing in your kitchen, staring at the coffee maker as it gurgles and hisses. The next moment you're waking up on your bathroom floor, no memory of how you got there, no sense of time passed. You check your phone. 3 hours gone, just missing. Erased from your experience like someone cut the film reel of your life and spliced it back together without the middle section. It happens again that night. You're reading through forum posts about the convergence, trying to make sense of what that alternate you meant when they said, not all of us will survive. And then suddenly you're in bed, fully clothed, lights still on, and it's 4 a.m. 5 hours lost, but you don't feel rested. You feel fractured, like you've been living multiple lives simultaneously, and your consciousness just snapped back to this one, leaving pieces of yourself scattered across other timelines. The worst part, you have flashes, fragments. When you come back from these blackouts, you carry memories that don't belong to you, Or maybe they do belong to you, just not this version of you. You remember driving somewhere urgently, hands gripping the wheel so hard your knuckles went white. You remember an argument, screaming at someone whose face you can't quite see. You remember the taste of fear, metallic and sharp, and the feeling of running, always running. You're living in fragments now, piecing together your existence from scattered moments across multiple timelines, and the lines between them are dissolving entirely. December 16th. You force yourself to focus, to investigate while you still have some coherent sense of self. You've been collecting data for months, astronomical observations, radiation readings, testimonials from people experiencing the splits, and now you spread it all out, determined to understand what's actually happening. Because that mirror encounter, that warning from your future self, it confirmed something you've suspected but couldn't prove. This is intentional. This isn't a cosmic accident. The comet isn't just passing by. It's doing something to us, something deliberate. You dig deeper into the Nostradamus texts, but not the popular quatrains everyone's sharing. You go obscure, hunting through disputed translations and apocryphal verses that scholars dismiss as fabrications. And that's where you find it. A passage that's been translated a dozen different ways, but one version makes your blood freeze. The wanderer from beyond brings the ancient gift, the forking of the soul, that consciousness may know all paths, that reality may branch like the tree of knowledge. What was one becomes many, and in the convergence, only the strongest root survives. The forking of the soul, not a side effect, not an accident, a design, an ancient impersonal force that's been encoded into this comet, this interstellar wanderer that's probably done this before to other worlds, other species, other civilizations unlucky enough to fall within its path. 3I Atlas isn't just a rock and ice hurtling through space. It's a catalyst, a weapon, a tool created by something so far beyond human understanding that we can only perceive its effects, not its purpose. And the radiation, it's not random. You find posts from amateur astronomers who have been measuring it, tracking the wavelengths. It's structured, patterned, like code written in electromagnetic frequencies, broadcasting directly into human consciousness, triggering the splits at a quantum level. Forking reality by forking minds. Every person on Earth is experiencing it to some degree, whether they realize it or not. But some of us, those of us who became aware early, who felt that first glitch back in July, we're more sensitive to it, more susceptible, or maybe just more conscious of what's being done to us. You're piecing it together now, the full scope of the horror. The comet is splitting consciousness itself, forcing every human being to experience multiple timelines simultaneously, and on December 19th, when it reaches its closest approach, all those timelines will converge, snap back together. And the Nostradamus text says it clearly, only the strongest root survives. Not all versions of you will make it through the convergence. Most will be erased, absorbed, their experiences and memories folded into the one that persists. And you have no idea which version that will be. The you sitting here now investigating, trying to understand, or one of the others, the ruthless one, the broken one, the violent one. That's when you feel it, the seepage. It's subtle at first, just a shift in your thoughts, a change in perspective. You're reading about survival strategies for the convergence, people desperately theorizing about how to ensure their timeline is the one that persists when you catch yourself thinking, whatever it takes. The thought feels foreign but familiar, cold, pragmatic. You push it away, but it lingers, leaving residue. Oh. For the next hours, it gets worse. You feel motivations that aren't yours bleeding into your consciousness. That ruthless version, the one who manipulates and lies, their instincts are merging with yours. You find yourself calculating, strategizing, thinking about how to ensure your survival even if it means others don't make it. The thoughts horrify you, but they also feel natural. Like they were always there, just buried. And now the barriers are breaking down, and you're becoming a composite of all your worst impulses alongside your best intentions. This is the real nightmare. Not the cosmic horror of timeline splits, but the intimate horror of realizing your darker selves aren't separate entities. They're you. Under different circumstances, with different choices, you became those people. And now they're coming back, their pathologies seeping into your psyche, and you can't tell anymore where you end and they begin. You feel that other you, the one who'd do anything to survive, creeping into your thoughts like an infection. Their memories start overlaying yours. You remember things you've never done, cutting someone off in traffic and feeling satisfaction rather than guilt, lying to get ahead at work. Small cruelties that accumulated into a different personality, a harder version of yourself. And the terrifying part is how easy it would be to let that version take over. To let their survival instinct override your ethics. Because when all the timelines converge and only one you remains, don't you want it to be the strongest one? The one most willing to fight, to endure, to do whatever is necessary. The global situation is deteriorating. You see it in the news, though they're still downplaying it, still calling it mass hysteria. But the footage tells a different story. People wandering streets in fugue states, living multiple timelines simultaneously. Families torn apart by members who have become strangers, their personalities shifting as different versions of themselves bleed through. Accidents spiking as people black out mid-activity. The infrastructure is straining. Hospitals overwhelmed. And the authorities keep insisting it's psychological, treatable, that everyone just needs to stay calm and seek mental health support. But you can see the comet now. Every night when darkness falls, you can look up and see it with the naked eye. A smudge of light against the stars, growing brighter each night, accompanied by that distinctive forked tail. It's beautiful in a terrible way, celestial and indifferent, an ancient force doing what it was designed to do, caring nothing for the billions of minds it's fracturing in the process. December 18th arrives. Tomorrow is the convergence. You can feel the pull constantly now, like gravity has increased, dragging you toward some inevitable collision point. You haven't slept, can't sleep. Every time you close your eyes, you slip into other timelines, other lives, and you're terrified you won't find your way back to this one. The comet dominates the night sky, visible even through city light pollution, casting an eerie glow across everything. People have stopped going to work. Some are barricaded in their homes. Others have taken to the streets, either celebrating the convergence like some kind of rapture or protesting it with signs reading, "We are not experiments," and "Stop the split." As if human signs could deter a cosmic force that's been traveling for millennia. You're sitting in your apartment, surrounded by months of research, trying to formulate some kind of plan for tomorrow, when your phone rings. You almost don't answer. Who would be calling at 11 p.m. on December 18th? Everyone you know is either experiencing their own crisis or has written you off as delusional, but something compels you to pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe fate, maybe the universe's sixth sense of humor. You answer, "Hello." Silence on the other end. No, not silence, breathing. Someone's there, listening, gathering courage or composure. Then a voice speaks, your voice. "Listen to me carefully," the other you says, and their tone is urgent, desperate. "This is your only warning. Tomorrow when the convergence happens, you need to." Static cuts through the line, distorting the words. "Fight for it, don't let the others." More static, your hand tightens around the phone. The final split isn't what you think. It's not about survival, it's about. The call drops, dead air. You stare at your phone, heart hammering, and immediately hit redial. The number shows as your own phone number. The call connects, rings once, and goes to your own voicemail. Your voice greeting yourself, a recursive loop that makes your head spin. You try again, same result. Whatever window allowed that call to come through has closed. You sit in the darkness of your apartment, comet light filtering through the windows, casting forked shadows across your walls. In less than 12 hours, December 19th will arrive. The comet will make its closest approach. And every version of you across every timeline will be pulled to the same moment, forced to converge into. What? Oneself, a composite, or will you simply cease to exist, scattered across realities that no longer have space for your fractured consciousness? That call, that warning from yourself, confirmed your worst fear. Escape is impossible. The convergence is happening whether you want it or not, but survival? That's still in question. And based on that incomplete message, based on the desperation in your other self's voice, survival might require something from you that you're not sure you're willing to give. The comet hangs in the sky like a sword suspended over humanity, and in a few hours it will fall. The question is, which version of you will be there to face it? The phone goes dead in your hand, but you can't let it go. You stare at the screen, at your own number displayed there, at the impossibility of what just happened. Your alternate self called you, warned you, and then the connection severed before you could understand what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to fight, what it even means to fade. You hit redial again. Once, twice, 3 times, nothing. Just your own voicemail, your own voice telling you to leave a message, the recursive loop of self calling self, creating a feedback loop that makes your head throb. Then the phone rings. You nearly drop it. The screen shows your own number calling. Again. Your hand shakes as you answer, bringing it to your ear with the kind of dread you'd feel opening a door you know has something terrible waiting behind it. Hello, your voice comes out hoarse, uncertain. Static crackles on the line, then breathing. Then words, distorted and overlapping, like multiple versions of your voice speaking slightly out of sync. Don't static, let us merge. The words hit you like ice water. What do you mean? What happens if we merge? One of us, the voice breaks apart, reforms. Stronger timeline survives, weaker ones get erased, absorbed. Everything you are, everything you remember, it all gets overwritten. You grip the phone tighter, pacing your apartment. Through the window, the comet's glow casts everything in sickly light. How do I stop it? How do I make sure this timeline, this me, survives? Silence stretches out. When the voice returns, it sounds closer, more immediate, like they're standing right behind you. That's the thing, you can't stop the convergence. It's already happening, has been since July, but you can resist, fight for dominance, push back against the others trying to take over. The others, you say it like a curse. You mean the other versions of me. We're all you, the voice says, and there's something bitter in it, something resentful. Every choice you didn't make, every path you didn't walk, we're all equally real, equally valid. But when the convergence completes tomorrow, only one version gets to continue. The strongest, the one most willing to do what it takes. And there it is, that phrase again, what it takes. The ruthless version of you used it, the survival-focused one. And now hearing it from this alternate self, hearing the calculation in their voice, the cold pragmatism, you realize something horrifying. They're already fighting. The other yous, across all the fractured timelines, they're already battling for dominance, trying to ensure their version is the one that survives. And that means you should be fighting too. Except you don't know how. Don't know what fighting even means in a context where your opponents are all versions of yourself, where the battlefield is your own consciousness. Listen to me, the voice continues, more urgent now. The splits didn't just create alternate versions of your life. They exposed things, amplified them. Every flaw, every buried impulse, every dark thought you've ever suppressed, those became entire timelines, entire versions of you built around those pathologies. Your stomach drops. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a version of you that's pure rage. All the anger you've swallowed over the years, every frustration and resentment you've buried, that version let it all out. They're not someone you'd recognize, not someone you'd want to be. You think about the violent snippets you've heard during the bleeds, the casual cruelty, the unhinged laughter, your voice saying terrible things. And there's a version that's broken, the voice continues. All your despair, your self-doubt, your worst moments of depression concentrated into a single timeline, that version has given up completely. They're a shell, barely functional. Why are you telling me this? Because they're both trying to merge with you right now, with all of us. The rage, you seize the convergence as an opportunity to finally take control, to stop being suppressed. The broken you just wants it to end, wants to pull everyone down into their despair. And there are others, so many others, each one a different pathology, a different extreme. You feel it then, really feel it for the first time. The battle happening inside your own mind. You've been attributing the intrusive thoughts to stress, to the trauma of the splits, but no. They're not random. They're invasions. Other versions of yourself trying to establish dominance, trying to override your consciousness with theirs. That cold calculation you felt earlier, that's the ruthless you pushing through. The sudden waves of hopelessness, that's the broken you trying to drag you under. And the rage, the flashes of anger that seem disproportionate to any trigger, that's the violent you testing the barriers, looking for weakness. So what do? You ask, and you hate how helpless you sound. You have to confront them, the voice says. Acknowledge what they are, where they came from, because they're not separate entities, they're you. They're all you, parts of yourself you've compartmentalized, denied, tried to pretend didn't exist. but the comet's radiation, the forking, it made them real, gave them their own timelines, their own agency, and now they want back in. You sink onto your couch, head in your free hand. This is the real horror, isn't it? Not cosmic forces or alternate realities, but being forced to confront your own capacity for darkness. Every person has this potential inside them: rage, despair, cruelty, self-destruction. Most people keep it contained, controlled, never let it define them. But what if it couldn't be contained? What if every dark impulse got its own reality to flourish in? I don't want to be any of those versions, you whisper. Then don't let them win, the voice says simply. But understand they're fighting just as hard as you are, maybe harder, because some of them have nothing to lose. You switch on the TV, needing some connection to the outside world, some confirmation that this isn't just happening to you. The news comes on mid-broadcast, an anchor with carefully neutral expression reading from a teleprompter. Continue to experience what authorities are calling technical glitches in power grids and communication networks. Officials stress there is no cause for alarm. These intermittent blackouts are being addressed and should be resolved shortly. In the meantime, citizens are advised to remain in their homes and avoid. The broadcast cuts to static, goes black, returns showing a different anchor, different set, like the channel itself has split into alternate versions. This anchor looks stressed, makeup smudged, hair disheveled. Reports of mass dissociative episodes continue to rise. Hospitals are overwhelmed. The government has issued no statement regarding the phenomena, but sources inside the CDC suggest. Another cut. Back to the first anchor, calm and composed, as if the other broadcast never happened. Reminds citizens that mass hysteria is a documented psychological phenomenon. There is no physical cause for the reported symptoms. Please remain calm and seek appropriate mental health resources if needed. The gaslighting is comprehensive, professional. They're going to minimize this until the very end, aren't they? Pretend it's all in people's heads while reality fractures around them. Maybe they don't know what else to do. Maybe acknowledging the truth that an alien force is splitting human consciousness across multiple timelines would cause more panic than the lies. You look out the window again. The comet is brighter now, lower in the sky, its forked tail creating bizarre light patterns across the city. You can feel it pulling at you. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, like it's a magnet, and your consciousness is iron filings, being drawn inexorably toward some central point of convergence. It's getting stronger, you say into the phone. I can feel it. 6 hours until peak approach, the voice confirms. The pull will get worse. The boundaries between timelines are almost gone now. You're going to start experiencing full overlaps, living multiple lives simultaneously. It's going to be disorienting. Disorienting. What an inadequate word for having your consciousness shredded across parallel realities. How do I know, you ask slowly, that you're not one of them, one of the pathological versions trying to trick me? The voice laughs, but it's not a happy sound. You don't. That's the point. Any of us could be lying. Any of us could be trying to weaken you, make you vulnerable so our version dominates. Trust is impossible when everyone's the same person with different agendas. The paranoia blooms instantly. Of course, why hadn't you thought of that? This voice could be the ruthless you, giving you just enough information to paralyze you with indecision. Or the broken you, trying to instill hopelessness. Or some other version with motivations you can't even comprehend. But here's what I can tell you that's verifiably true, the voice continues. Whatever version of you survives the convergence, they're going to carry pieces of all of us. The merger isn't clean. It's not like only one timeline persists intact. It's more like forced integration. All the experiences, all the memories, all the personality traits from every timeline get compressed into one consciousness. And whoever has the strongest core identity, the strongest sense of self, that's whose personality dominates the composite. So I have to, hold on to who I am, remember myself. More than remember, you have to assert yourself, believe in your own validity, because I promise you the others are doing the same. The rage you thinks their anger is justified, righteous, necessary. The broken you thinks everyone deserves to feel their pain. The ruthless you thinks survival is the only thing that matters. They all have narratives that make them the hero of their own story. You need yours to be stronger. You open your mouth to ask another question, but the voice cuts you off. Wait, do you feel that? You do. A shift, a sudden intensification of the pull, like gravity just doubled. Your vision blurs. For a moment, you're not in your apa. Artiment, you're somewhere else, multiple somewheres, standing in an office you've never seen, sitting in a car, walking down a street in a city you don't recognize, all simultaneously, all real. Then you snap back, gasping. It's starting, the voice says, and now there's fear in it. Raw, undisguised fear. The final acceleration. The convergence is beginning early. We thought we had until tomorrow, but static erupts through the line. When it clears, the voice is different, colder, harder. Fight or fade, it says, and you can't tell if it's a warning or a threat. Only the strong survive the line cuts completely. Dead. You're left holding a silent phone, the comet's glow intensifying outside your window, and a sensation of multiple versions of yourself pressing against your consciousness, trying to force their way in, trying to take over. You feel them now? Really feel them. The rage seething at the edges of your mind, looking for an opening. The despair trying to drag you down. The ruthless calculation measuring your worth, finding you lacking. And others, so many others, each one a facet of yourself magnified into a complete personality, each one fighting for dominance. The battle isn't coming. It's here. It's now. And you're standing in the center of it, trying desperately to remember who you are amid the onslaught of who you could have been. The question is, will that be enough? It starts just after 11 p.m. You're sitting on your couch, phone still in your hand from that severed call, trying to process the warning, fight or fade, when reality fractures completely. One moment you're there in your apartment, staring at the comet through your window. The next moment you're also somewhere else. Not a memory, not a vision. You're actually, physically, simultaneously existing in two places, two timelines, two versions of this same moment. In one timeline, you're still on your couch. Safe. The apartment is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of sirens outside. You're watching the comet reach its zenith, that forked tail spreading across the sky like a crack in reality itself. But in the other timeline, you're running. Rain-slicked streets under your feet, lungs burning, heart hammering against your ribs. You don't know what you're running from, but the terror is primal, immediate. You can feel the cold rain soaking through your clothes, can hear footsteps behind you, or maybe that's just your echo, another version of yourself running through a different street in a different timeline. And then you're back on the couch, then running again, flipping between lives like someone's changing channels on a TV, except both channels are playing simultaneously and you're experiencing both at once. The sensory overload is staggering. You can taste rain and stale apartment air, feel couch cushions and wet pavement, hear silence and the slap of your own footsteps pursuing you through impossible geographies. This is what the convergence feels like. Not a gentle merging, but a violent collision of every version of yourself slamming together as the barriers between timelines collapse entirely. You manage to grab your laptop during a moment of singular focus, pulling up the forums, the news feeds, anything that might ground you or at least confirm you're not losing your mind. The internet is fracturing too. Half the sites won't load. The ones that do show contradictory information, like they're pulling from different timelines. One news feed shows mass evacuations. Another shows normal programming. A third shows static with emergency broadcast warnings underneath. But the forums, those are alive with terror. People posting in real time about experiencing the same thing. Living multiple lives simultaneously. The reality quakes, they're calling them. Waves of dimensional instability rippling across the globe as the comet reaches peak approach. Tokyo, London, New York, Sao Paulo, every city reporting the same phenomena. People phasing between timelines, experiencing parallel versions of their lives, unable to hold onto a single coherent reality. And casualties, there are casualties. People who couldn't handle the cognitive load of existing in multiple states simultaneously. Minds breaking under the strain. Or worse, people whose timelines converged in incompatible ways, creating paradoxes that resulted in absence. Just gone. Erased from existence because the universe couldn't reconcile the contradictions. You force yourself to focus, to investigate even as your consciousness splinters across realities. You pull up those Nostradamus texts again, the obscure translations you'd found before, and start cross-referencing with what people are posting. There's a pattern emerging, a terrible, cosmic pattern. Someone's translated another disputed verse, posting it with shaking hands you can almost feel through the screen. The wanderer judges the fractured souls, keeping only those branches which bear fruit. The weak wood is pruned, burned away, that the strong tree may thrive. Pruning, the ancient force, isn't just splitting consciousness, it's judging it, evaluating every version of every person, measuring them against some unknowable criteria, and erasing the ones found wanting. This isn't a random cosmic event. It's deliberate, intentional, an ancient mechanism designed to filter consciousness itself to determine which versions of humanity deserve to persist. You start laughing, but it's not a sane sound, because of course this is what's happening. The comet isn't just causing the splits, it's the instrument of judgment, and you're being weighed. Every version of you is being weighed. The ruthless one, the broken one, the violent one, and the you sitting here trying to understand it all. Which version bears fruit, which is worthy, which will be pruned. Timeline flipping intensifies. Now you're not just in two places, but 3, 4, 5. You're sheltering in a basement with strangers during what looks like a storm or disaster. You're standing on a rooftop watching the comet with someone who might be a lover you never met. You're driving frantically towards somewhere you can't identify. You're arguing with your mother about something that feels simultaneously urgent and meaningless. You're alone in a dark room, weeping, overwhelmed by an emotion you can't name. All of these are you. All of these are real. All of these are happening right now in this moment as midnight approaches and the comet's radiation reaches its peak intensity. And the worst part? You can feel the motivations of each version bleeding together. The you that's running feels pursued by something more than physical. They're running from the convergence itself, trying to escape what can't be escaped. The you in the basement feels resigned, accepting, almost peaceful about the coming erasure. The you on the rooftop feels transcendent, like they're witnessing something beautiful and terrible and are grateful for it. The you in the car feels desperate to reach someone, to save someone, to make some final connection before it's all over. Which of these is really you? Which motivation is authentic? Or are they all equally real, just different expressions of the same core consciousness responding to different circumstances? Hang tight, because this is where it gets meta. What if the version of you fighting hardest to survive, the one pushing all the others aside, refusing to be erased, what if that's the one you fear most? What if the ruthless you, the one willing to do anything, sacrifice anyone including your other selves, what if they're the strongest? What if survival means becoming the version of yourself you've spent your whole life trying not to be? You're wrestling with this, trying to hold on to some sense of ethics, some core identity that says this is who I am, these are my values, but the other versions are screaming their own truths. The ruthless you says survival is the only value that matters. The broken you says nothing matters, so why fight? The violent you says take what's yours by force. Each voice is you, each perspective is valid from its own timeline's context, and they're all demanding dominance. This is the real horror, not monsters or gore or external threats, but being forced to confront every possible version of yourself and realize that under the right or wrong circumstances, you could be any of them. You contain all of them. They're not corruptions or aberrations, they're potentials, and one of them is about to become permanent. The clock hits 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until midnight. 13 minutes until the comet reaches its absolute closest approach to Earth. The reality quakes are constant now. You're not flipping between timelines anymore. You're existing in all of them simultaneously, a fractured consciousness spread across infinite possibilities, and it's taking everything you have not to completely dissolve. You try to focus on your apartment on this timeline, but it's getting harder. The boundaries are almost gone. You can see through the walls into other versions of this space, other furniture arrangements, other yous living other lives in the same physical location across different timelines. And then, in one of those overlapping moments, you see them. Another you, not a glimpse, not a reflection, not a voice on the phone. A physical manifestation, solid and real, standing in your living room like they've always been there. They look like you, but different, harder eyes, different clothes, a scar you don't have, or maybe you do have it in their timeline. They're staring at you with an expression you can't quite read. Desperation, recognition, fear. They reach out their hand toward you, and you can see it shaking. Their lips move, forming words you can hear and feel rather than actually hearing. "Help me, please. I don't want to disappear." The comet outside reaches its peak visibility. The sky is no longer dark, it's illuminated by that forked tail, by radiation that's rewriting reality at a quantum level. You can feel the final convergence beginning, the ultimate collapse of all timelines into whatever singular state emerges from this cosmic judgment. The other you takes a step closer. Their hand is still extended, and you realize with creeping horror that if you take it, if you make that connection, one of you is going to absorb the other. One consk. Isness will dominate, one will be erased, and you don't know which it will be. The boundaries dissolve completely. The walls between timelines evaporate. Every version of you across every possible reality suddenly occupies the same space, the same moment, and you're all reaching for each other, all desperate to survive, all terrified of being pruned. Something irreversible begins. You feel it in your bones, in your mind, in the very fabric of your existence. This is the point of no return. The convergence is no longer approaching, it's here. And whatever happens in the next moments will determine which version of you gets to continue existing. If any version survives at all. Midnight strikes and everything changes. The other you standing in your living room, hand extended, desperate and real, they suddenly convulse. Not physically attacked, not harmed by any external force, but seized by something internal, something cosmic. Their eyes go wide with terror and you watch as they start to fade, not disappear, fade. Like reality is slowly erasing them, pixel by pixel, consciousness by consciousness. They mouth one last word, please, and then they're gone, simply gone, erased from existence, pruned. And you understand, with the cold clarity of absolute horror, that this is happening to all versions of you right now. Across every timeline, every possibility, the comet's radiation has reached its peak intensity and activated its true purpose. The ancient mechanism is judging, evaluating, pruning the weak branches so the strong can thrive, and you don't know the criteria. You don't know what makes a timeline worthy or corrupt. You only know that versions of you are being erased and you might be next. Outside, the world is collapsing into chaos. Through your window, you can see power grids flickering, entire city blocks going dark, then blazing back to life, then dark again, like reality itself can't decide which version is real. Car alarms scream in discordant symphony. You hear screaming from the streets, people fleeing their homes, or maybe just fleeing themselves, trying to escape the convergence that can't be escaped. Emergency sirens wail continuously, overlapping from multiple timelines, creating an unholy chorus of disaster. The comet blazes overhead, brighter than you've ever seen it, casting everything in that eerie forked light. And in that light you see them, memories, but not your memories, memories from the others. From all the versions being pruned, their experiences flooding into your consciousness as they're erased, giving you their last moments, their last thoughts, their last desperate attempts to prove their worth. You see the ruthless you. Watch through their eyes as they betray a friend for a promotion, justifying it with cold logic about survival and competition. Feel their satisfaction at winning, at coming out on top, completely absent of guilt or remorse. Then you see them years later in that timeline, isolated and successful but fundamentally alone, wondering why no one stayed. You see the broken you. Experience their spiral into despair after a loss you never suffered in your timeline, watching them give up piece by piece until they're just going through motions, a hollow shell pretending to be alive. Feel their exhaustion, their bone-deep conviction that nothing matters and nothing will ever get better. You see the violent you. The one who let rage consume them after one too many injustices, one too many times being pushed. Watch them hurt someone, actually hurt them, and feel the terrible release of it, the awful satisfaction of finally acting on impulses the rest of you kept buried. These aren't abstract concepts anymore. They're you. You lived these lives, made these choices, became these people in timelines that branched off from moments you barely remember, and now they're being judged, being measured against some cosmic standard of worth. And here's the thing that makes your blood turn to ice. You have to participate. The pruning isn't purely external, it's interactive. You feel it instinctively, understand it with a knowledge that's being downloaded directly into your consciousness by the comet's radiation. To survive, you have to identify the corrupt versions. You have to become your own detective, your own judge, your own executioner. Which me did this? You whisper, pulling up those memories, those flashes of alternate lives, trying to determine which versions deserve to be erased, trying to determine which parts of yourself are worthy and which are what? Evil, weak, simply inconvenient to whatever purpose the comet serves. You're methodically going through them now, experiencing each version like case files in an impossible investigation. There's the you who became addicted to something, pills, alcohol, work, doesn't matter, and let it destroy your relationships. The you who grew bitter and resentful, poisoning every interaction with cynicism. The you who became obsessed with status and material success at the expense of everything else. The you who gave up on dreams too easily. The you who held on to dreams too stubbornly, refusing to adapt when life demanded change. Which of these is corrupt? Which deserves pruning? They're all you. All legitimate responses to different circumstances, different traumas, different choices at critical junctures. How do you judge yourself when every version has their reasons, their justifications, their internal logic that makes perfect sense from their perspective? The power in your apartment flickers, goes out completely for 5 seconds that feel like 5 hours. When it comes back, you're not alone. 3V. Versions of yourself stand in the room with you, solid and real and terrified. You recognize them from the flashes, the ruthless one, the broken one, the violent one, the pathological extremes. They're looking at you at them, and you all understand simultaneously. Only one of you is leaving this room. Maybe not even one. Maybe all versions get pruned and something else emerges from the convergence. But definitely not all of you survive. I did what I had to do, the ruthless one says, voice hard and defensive. Survival isn't pretty, someone has to win. What's the point? The broken one whispers. We're all dying anyway, everything ends, why fight it? The violent one doesn't speak, just stares with those eyes that have crossed lines the rest of you haven't, radiating barely contained rage. And you, the version you think of as yourself, the one who's been investigating all this, trying to understand, what makes you worthy? Your curiosity, your desire to comprehend, is that enough? Or are you just as pathological in your own way, obsessing over cosmic horror instead of living your life, alienating people with your paranoia about timeline splits? The comet's glow intensifies. You can feel the mechanism activating, the final judgment approaching. You have to choose. Have to actively participate in the pruning or be pruned yourself. I'm sorry, you say, though you're not sure who you're apologizing to. And then you make the choice. You focus on the violent one, on that rage that crossed into action, into harm. You push against their existence, assert your own reality over theirs, and feel them start to fade. They fight back, trying to pull you into erasure instead, but you're stronger, or maybe just more desperate, more willing to commit to survival even if it means erasing part of yourself. They fade, pruned, gone. The broken one goes next, choosing to let go, accepting erasure with something like relief. Finally, they whisper as they dissolve. The ruthless one fights harder, tries to argue their case, to prove their worth through sheer force of will. But you see the emptiness in that timeline, the isolation their choices created, and you push harder. They fade too, but not before locking eyes with you and saying, "You're more like me than you think." And then it's just you, alone in your apartment. The comet still blazing overhead but beginning to fade now, moving past Earth, the peak moment passing. You feel other timelines collapsing, other versions being pruned across the globe, consciousness after consciousness being judged and found wanting. You survived, you made it through the pruning. You should feel relief, triumph, something positive. Instead, you feel hollow. Because pruning the other versions wasn't clean. They didn't just disappear. They merged into you first, folded their experiences and memories and personality traits into your consciousness before being erased. You remember being them now. Remember making their choices, feeling their emotions, becoming those versions of yourself. And even though they're gone, they're still there. Echoes, whispers, parts of yourself you can't fully excise. The ruthless one's voice in your head when you think about competition. The broken one's despair lurking beneath your thoughts. The violent one's rage simmering at the edges of your patience. The comet is passing, the glow is fading, the worst should be over. But the echoes aren't fading, they're growing stronger. And a terrible thought crosses your mind, borrowed from one of the pruned versions, and you can't tell anymore if it's their thought or yours. What if you weren't the one who survived? What if you were pruned and the version that remains just thinks they're you? What if the consciousness that persisted is actually one of the others, wearing your memories like a mask? How would you even know? How would you ever know? The comet continues its journey away from Earth, but inside your head, inside your very identity, something is still fracturing, still splitting, still questioning which version of you is real and which are just echoes pretending to be whole. The comet passes, dawn breaks on December 20th, and the world impossibly starts returning to normal. But you don't. The sky clears to a pale winter blue, no trace of that forked tail that dominated the heavens for months. News broadcasts resume their regular programming with brief mentions of yesterday's global technical difficulties and mass stress-related incidents. Power grids stabilize. Traffic flows normally. People go to work, check their phones, grab coffee like the fabric of reality didn't just tear itself apart and stitch itself back together with pieces missing. But inside you, you're piecing together a fractured puzzle, and you're not sure all the pieces belong to the same image anymore. Let's explore that dread together, because this is where the real horror lies. Not in the chaos of convergence, but in the quiet aftermath, when you're left alone with what remains. You're sitting in your apartment as morning light filters through the windows, and you're trying to remember who you are. Not your name, that's still there. Not your basic history, you remember your childhood, your education, the major events of your life. But the texture of your identity, the subtle motivations and preferences and quirks that make you you, those are slipping away like water through your fingers. You make coffee, and halfway through the process you freeze. Do you like coffee? You've been drinking it every morning for years, haven't you? But suddenly you can't remember if that's your preference or if it belonged to one of the pruned versions, one of the echoes that merged into you before being erased. Maybe the broken you needed caffeine to function. Maybe the ruthless you used it as a tool, a performance of productivity. And now those motivations are gone, but the habit remains, and you're left holding a mug of liquid you're not sure you actually want. It gets worse. You pick up your phone to call someone, a friend maybe or family, and you scroll through your contacts staring at names that feel simultaneously familiar and alien. Did you have a good relationship with these people? Were you close? The memories are there, but they feel thin, two-dimensional, like photographs of experiences rather than the experiences themselves. The emotional weight is missing, the authentic connection. Like someone described these relationships to you, and you memorized the descriptions, but you never actually felt them. This is what the pruning took. Not your memories, but the emotional resonance that makes them real. Not your history, but your authentic connection to it. You're a collection of facts about a person, assembled into the shape of an identity, but you can't shake the feeling that the actual person, the real you, was erased, and what's left is just an echo wearing their memories like a costume. You force yourself to investigate one last time to try to understand what happened and maybe find some confirmation that you're real. You pull up those Nostradamus texts, the forum discussions, the astronomical data, everything you've been collecting for months. But even this feels different now. Your obsessive need to understand, was that really yours? Or did it belong to another version, someone more analytical, more paranoid? And now you're just continuing their work because you don't know what else to do. You read through the translations again, the disputed verses, and something clicks. A pattern you missed before, maybe because you weren't looking at it from the right angle, or maybe because the convergence gave you perspective from multiple timelines simultaneously. The texts aren't just predictions, they're instructions, a manual for an ancient cosmic mechanism designed to test humanity. The wanderer brings the great forking, one verse reads, that souls may walk all paths and know their true nature. Only those who remain whole when split, who adapt without breaking, shall pass through the eye of the celestial needle. A test. The entire thing was a test of human resilience. Not physical resilience. The comet's radiation didn't harm bodies. It harmed consciousness. It forced every human being to confront every possible version of themselves, every path not taken, every choice that could have led to a different life. And the ones who couldn't adapt, who couldn't maintain their sense of self amid the multiplicity, who let their extreme pathologies dominate, those were the ones who got pruned. The ones who became too ruthless, too broken, too violent, too rigid, too lost in any single extreme that they couldn't integrate the fullness of their potential selves. The comet amplified those pathologies, brought them to the surface across different timelines, and then judged whether the core consciousness could handle the revelation of what they were capable of becoming. You passed, presumably, you're still here, but at what cost? Because you can feel it now, pieces of yourself that aren't there anymore. Emotions that used to come easily now require effort to access. Interests that used to fascinate you now feel flat. You're functional, coherent, alive, but diminished. Like the pruning didn't just erase the extreme versions but took parts of the baseline you as collateral damage. The world outside your window is bustling back to life. Cars honking, people walking dogs, delivery trucks making their rounds, civilization resuming its normal rhythm like nothing happened. But you know the truth. You know that millions of people are sitting in their homes right now feeling exactly what you feel, this hollowness, this existential uncertainty, this question that can't be answered. Am I the original, or am I just an echo that thinks it survived? The forums are full of it, people posting about feeling disconnected from their own lives, unable to reconnect with loved ones because the emotional bonds feel fake now, performed rather than felt, going through the motions of their routines like actors playing roles they can't quite remember learning. The global trauma is being dismissed as PTSD from the mass hysteria event, with psychologists recommending therapy and medication and time. But you know it's deeper than that. It's not psychological damage that can be healed. It's ontological. You're not sure you're fully real anymore. Days pass. December 20th becomes 21st becomes 22nd. The comet is a distant speck in the sky, barely visible even with telescopes. 3I Atlas continues its journey through the solar system and back out into interstellar space, its purpose fulfilled, indifferent to the fractured consciousnesses it left in its wake. An impersonal force that arrived, did what it was designed to do, and departed, caring nothing for the aftermath. You try to resume your life. Go to work, though you had to call in sick for the few days right after the convergence because you literally couldn't hold a coherent identity long enough to function. Your coworkers ask if you're feeling better, and you say yes because what else can you say? I'm not sure I'm the same person who worked here last week, isn't exactly workplace-appropriate conversation. But in the isolation of your apartment at night, when the world is quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, the fractures become apparent. You'll be reading or watching something, and you'll notice gaps in your reactions. A joke that should make you laugh doesn't. A sad scene that should move you feels distant. Like your emotional range has been compressed, filed down, streamlined into something more efficient but less human. And the echoes persist. You still hear them sometimes, whispers of the pruned versions, their thoughts and motivations bleeding through at random moments. The ruthless you suggesting you take advantage of someone's vulnerability. The broken you whispering that nothing matters anyway. The violent you fantasizing about retribution against minor slights. They're quieter now, more distant, but they're not gone. They're part of your composite consciousness, integrated whether you wanted them or not. It's the quiet aftermath that terrifies you more than the chaos of convergence ever did. Because during the event, there was action, urgency, something to fight against. But now there's just this persistent uncertainty, this inability to trust your own mind, this sense that you're a patchwork person assembled from fragments that don't quite fit together correctly. You're standing in your bathroom one night brushing your teeth, another habit you can't remember choosing when you see it. A flicker in the mirror, not your reflection, someone else. Another you standing slightly to the left, occupying the same space but from a different angle. You spin around, but there's nothing behind you. When you look back at the mirror, they're still there. The glitch lasts only a second, but in that second you see them clearly. Another version. One that shouldn't exist anymore. One that should have been pruned or merged or erased in the convergence. But they're there, solid and real and watching you with an expression you can't read. Then they're gone. Your reflection is alone again, just you, staring at yourself with toothpaste foam in your mouth and fear in your eyes. Did you imagine it? Is it just trauma, your mind playing tricks, creating phantoms out of memory? Or is it real? Is there still a surviving alternate lurking in your periphery, existing in some quantum superposition the convergence didn't fully resolve? You rinse your mouth, hands shaking, and try to convince yourself it was nothing. Just an echo, just a fragment of memory. But you know, with the same certainty you felt when your hand phased through your keys back in July, that it was real. The fork isn't over. The comet passed, the convergence happened, the pruning completed. Boo. Something survived that shouldn't have. Some version of you that slipped through the cosmic judgment, or maybe never underwent it at all, hiding in the gaps between timelines, waiting. And as you stand there in your bathroom, staring at your now singular reflection, a thought crosses your mind, borrowed from one of the echoes, or maybe genuinely yours, you can't tell anymore. What if the split was just the beginning? What if the comet's passage didn't end the fork but activated something else, something that's just starting to unfold? What if December 19th wasn't the climax but the trigger? You can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. That's somewhere in the fractured probability space of your existence, another version of you is looking back, waiting for their moment. And you have no idea what they want or what they'll do when the barriers thin again. Because they will thin again, you feel it instinctively. Whatever the comet started, it's not finished. This alternate history, this timeline you're living now, it's unstable, and something is coming. Something that makes the convergence look like a warning shot. Life goes on. That's what they tell you. That's what you tell yourself as December 20th becomes 21st, becomes 22nd, as the world continues spinning like nothing happened, like reality didn't fracture and reform into something fundamentally different. Life goes on, and you try to go on with it. You return to work after a few days of calling in sick. Your coworkers make small talk about the crazy technical issues during the comet's pass, laugh nervously about how weird everyone was acting, how mass hysteria can really mess with people's heads. You nod along, smile at the right moments, participate in the collective amnesia that society has tacitly agreed upon. It's easier that way. Easier to pretend it was all temporary, all over, all safely in the past. But you know better. Because the glitches haven't stopped. They're subtler now, harder to catch, but they're there. You'll be having a conversation with someone and suddenly they'll say something that doesn't match the context, like they're responding to a different version of what you said. Or you'll walk into a room and the furniture will be arranged slightly differently than you remember, not enough to be certain, just enough to make you doubt. Or you'll check your phone and see a text message that changes content while you're reading it, words rearranging themselves into different meanings. The fork didn't end, it became permanent. You start documenting it obsessively, taking photos, recording videos, writing down every anomaly. But when you review the evidence later, it's always ambiguous. The photos look normal. The videos show nothing unusual. Your written notes describe events you're no longer sure happened. It's like reality is gaslighting you, or maybe you're gaslighting yourself, or maybe there's no difference anymore. 3 days after the convergence, you're at a coffee shop, trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy when you see them. Another you, standing in line 3 people back, ordering something perfectly solid and real. You freeze, coffee cup halfway to your mouth, staring. They're dressed differently than you, hair styled differently, but it's unmistakably your face, your build, your mannerisms. They pay for their drink, turn toward the door, and for just a moment your eyes meet. Recognition flashes between you. They know what you are. You know what they are. 2 versions that should have merged but didn't, existing simultaneously in the same timeline, the same space, the same moment. Then they walk past you and out the door, and you're too stunned to follow. By the time you make it outside, they're gone, vanished into the crowd or into another timeline or into the quantum foam of possibility that reality has become. But the encounter leaves you with a chilling realization. The convergence didn't resolve the splits, it just made them stable. You're living in a permanently forked timeline now where multiple versions can coexist, overlap, intersect. The boundaries are still there, but they're permeable, porous, and you can feel yourself slipping through them. It gets weirder. You start noticing that when you interact with people, they seem to fracture just slightly. A friend tells you a story about their weekend, and you swear you hear 2 different versions simultaneously, one where they stayed home, one where they went out. A family member mentions an event from your childhood, and the details shift mid-conversation, like they're pulling from multiple timelines of memory. It's subtle, barely noticeable, but it's there. And you realize with growing horror that you might be causing it, that the fork is contagious. That by being split yourself, By carrying multiple versions of consciousness within your singular existence, you're triggering splits in others. Your presence destabilizes reality around you, causing timelines to branch and blur and overlap. You've become a vector for the very phenomenon that nearly destroyed you. Is this what the comet intended? Was this the purpose of the cosmic test, not just to judge humanity but to fundamentally alter it? To create a species capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously, of navigating probability space instead of linear time? Or was it something more insidious, a corruption that spreads from person to person, consciousness to consciousness, until everyone is fractured and no one is whole? You dive back into the Nostradamus texts one final time, searching for answers or at least context. And you find a verse you'd overlooked before, dismissed as too cryptic to be useful. When the forking is complete, the many become one and the one becomes many, and time loses its singular path. The children of the split shall walk between worlds forever and never, until the cycle renews with the next wanderer's passing. The cycle renews. This isn't a unique event. It's happened before, will happen again. Other comets, other cosmic mechanisms, other species across the universe experiencing the test the same transformation, the same permanent alteration of their relationship with reality. 3I Atlas is just one instrument in an ancient, impersonal pattern that repeats across space and time, forking consciousness wherever it goes. And the really terrifying part? You can't know if any of it was objectively real. The forums are still full of people comparing experiences, but their accounts are increasingly divergent, contradictory, like everyone lived through a different version of December 19th. Some remember a peaceful convergence, a gentle merging. Others remember violence, chaos, mass casualties. Some don't remember the comet at all, insist it passed without incident, and think everyone else is experiencing shared delusion. Was it real? Or was it a manifestation of collective fear, a mass psychogenic event triggered by centuries of apocalyptic prophecy, of Nostradamus's predictions creating a self-fulfilling psychological crisis that felt like reality fracturing because enough people believed it would? Can you trust your own memories when they've been overlaid with experiences from timelines that may never have existed? When your consciousness is a composite of pruned and merged selves whose reality you can't verify? The ambiguity is suffocating. You want concrete answers, definitive proof, some way to know for certain what happened and what you've become. But the nature of the fork makes certainty impossible. You exist in a superposition of states, simultaneously the original and the echo, the survivor and the pruned, the real and the manifestation. Schrödinger's person, collapsed and uncollapsed, defined by observation, but observed by versions of yourself who can't agree on what they're seeing. Your motivations have changed. You notice it gradually over the weeks following the event. The things that used to drive you, career advancement, relationship goals, personal achievements, feel hollow now, almost quaint. How can you care about a promotion when you might be living in one of infinite timelines where you already got it, or never applied, or quit your job entirely? How can you invest in a relationship when you carry memories of versions where it failed, or flourished, or never began? But new motivations emerge from the fracture. A desperate need to understand, to map the boundaries of this new reality. A compulsion to connect with others who are split, to find solidarity in shared fragmentation. And strangest of all, a curiosity about which version of yourself will become dominant over time, which personality traits will assert themselves as your composite consciousness stabilizes, or if it ever stabilizes at all. You're sitting in your apartment one evening in late December, the comet now invisible in the sky, having moved beyond Earth's orbit and back into the depths of space. You're thinking about everything that's happened, everything you've experienced, everything you've become. And you realize that despite the horror, despite the trauma, despite the existential terror of not knowing if you're real, there's something almost beautiful about it. The infinite possibilities, the freedom from singular identity, the chance to be multiple things simultaneously, to explore every path, to never be confined to just one version of yourself. It's terrifying, yes, but it's also thrilling. It's the most profoundly human experience you've ever had, to be everything at once, to contain multitudes, to be forever becoming rather than being. You catch a glimpse of movement in your peripheral vision. Another you, standing by the window, looking out at the night sky. You turn your head, but they're gone. Or maybe they were never there. Or maybe they're always there, just existing slightly out of phase with your primary consciousness, a constant companion you can never quite perceive directly. You think about the person you were before July 2025, before the first glitch, before you phased through your keys and started down this path. That version of you is gone, pruned or merged or simply lost in the multiplication of selves. And you realize you don't mourn them, because you're so much more now. Fractured, yes. Unstable, certainly. But more complex, more aware, more alive to the infinite possibilities of existence. The quiet horror settles in, not the screaming terror of convergence, but the soft, persistent dread of knowing that nothing will ever be simple again. Every choice you make now branches into multiple timelines. Every person you interact with potentially fractures. Every moment carries the weight of infinite alternatives playing out simultaneously in probability space you can't quite access but can feel pressing against the edges of your awareness. This is your new reality. This is what the comet left behind, not destruction but transformation, not ending but infinite beginning. In this alternate history, in this what-if world where 3i Atlas forked your timeline and the fork became permanent, you are forever split. And maybe that was always the truth. Maybe the comet didn't change anything, it just made you aware of what you always were. A multiplicity masquerading as singularity. A quantum probability cloud collapsed into the illusion of a single point. You stand up, walk to the bathroom, look in the mirror. Your reflection stares back, singular and solid, but you can feel the others behind it, watching through your eyes, living through your consciousness, existing in superposition with you. And you wonder which one is looking out right now, which version has control. And does it even matter when you're all the same person, just experiencing yourselves from different angles? Now look in your mirror, not the one I'm discreet. Bing your mirror, the real one, the one in your bathroom or bedroom or wherever you are right now. Look at your reflection and ask yourself, what if your split is waiting? What if December 19, 2025 isn't fiction but prophecy? What if right now, in this moment, you're experiencing just one timeline of infinite possibilities, and other versions of you are looking in their mirrors wondering the same thing? What if the fork already happened, and you just haven't noticed yet? What if 3i Atlas didn't just pass through our solar system? It changed everything, and we're all living in the aftermath, fractured and multiple, and trying desperately to believe we're still singular. The comet is gone now, traveling back into interstellar space, its purpose fulfilled or perhaps ongoing in ways we can't perceive. But the fracture remains. The split persists. And every time you catch a glimpse of yourself in a reflection, every time you feel a moment of déjà vu, every time you question whether a memory is real or invented, you're feeling the edges of your timeline branching, forking, multiplying into infinity. This is the new reality, thrilling, terrifying, and oh so human. Because what is more human than containing multitudes, than being contradictory and complex and impossible to pin down to a single definition? The comet didn't make us something we weren't. It just revealed what we've always been. Infinite possibilities collapsed into temporary singularities, forever on the edge of splitting into everything we could be. And in this alternate timeline, in this horror story that might be prophecy, that might be happening right now, that might have always been happening, we're all split, all fractured, all multiple. The only question is, are you aware of it yet? Or are you still clinging to the comforting illusion that you're just one person, living one life, in one timeline, with one future stretching ahead of you? Because I promise you, look closely enough and you'll see the cracks. Feel carefully enough and you'll sense the other yous pressing against the boundaries of your awareness. And once you notice, you can never unnotice. The fork, once perceived, is permanent. Welcome to the new fracture. Welcome to the rest of your infinite lives. Welcome to what happens after the split, when you realize the split never ends, it just becomes who you are. Sweet dreams, I hope you don't see yourself in them. Or maybe I hope you do, all of yourselves, every version, every possibility, every path branching infinitely in the dark. Because that's the truth now. That's what December 19, 2025 left behind in this alternate history where everything changed and nothing changed, and we all became something more and less than we were before. The comet has passed, but the horror remains, quiet, subtle, permanent, and profoundly, terrifyingly human.